a lecherous pantaloon. And some do, and some don't. And those that don't envy the ones that do. Lecherous pantaloon is a wonderfully Peter kind of expression. But he liked to show that part of himself. He liked to portray that, hard drinking, joke telling, wolf whistling, Max Pizza, flirting with the waitresses, gargling out soccer hymns, and scatology. Peter showed that part of himself, and I'm glad he did, because of the love of life and the bon vivre and the bravura. He really knew how to live. And he would sometimes say to his Islamic students, who he thought lived very restrictive lifestyles, he said, haven't you ever run through a meadow or ridden a horse or dived naked into the ocean? And he made you feel that. That is what he valued. You often felt when you were talking to him like you were riding a horse into the ocean through a meadow. And so I value him for that, and I respect that. But if you thought that was all he was, if you thought he was only a tavern personality or a performer, then I think that is also a case of mistaken identity. For example, he once told me what his favorite song was. I don't know if he's telling the truth because he told me different songs were his favorite. I think my favorite was like a catch-all, which sort of goes against the point of the favorite. But at one point, at least shortly before he died, he told me it was Leaning on a Lamppost by Hermiturnics, or Noel Gay. I don't know, Hornby? Okay. All right, the old one. Which, if you don't know, it is a beautiful, beautiful love song about waiting for your beloved. It's about a guy, you might think he's a tramp out to steal a car, but he's just really waiting by a lamppost in the middle of the street in case a certain little lady comes by. He sang that song to us, rattling his whisper 8 days before he took his final breath, and apologized only because he could not say in one breath the part that goes, "She's absolutely wonderful and marvelous." And I never saw that coming. And there were a lot of things I didn't see coming. I didn't see coming, I think it might have even been on the same day. It was one of the number of hospital bed performances where he's lying there, and he says a line that is so brilliant and beautiful and poetic, and it seems to come out of nowhere. He's lying in his bed, and he taps his bed like this, and he says, "Yes, you will all lie down in this same bed together." Sure. And I remember other things about him I didn't see coming. I remember a year ago, actually a year ago yesterday, Oktoberfest, this last Oktoberfest, I had gotten into a fight with my girlfriend and stalked out on her and left her crying, young eager that I am. And Peter comforted her and danced with her and told her that I was a fool. And I thank him for that. And I remember also a year ago when my mother died, he was one of the only people at work to send me a card. He sent me a card and he wrote me a poem. And they were both beautiful and they touched me very deeply. And I remember the way he talked about his friends. How he had one of the friends in particular, and he said that he loved like a son. And I believe he did. And I remember, of course, what Linda told me were his last words, or among his last words, mouthed to her when he couldn't talk anymore, with his hand on her cheek. "I love you." So when I think about Peter, and I think about what we lose, I don't think that we lose the jokes because we remember them so perfectly and so well that we can see him right there telling them. And I don't think that we lose personality because we remember it. I think what we do lose are the things about him that we never saw coming. Mistaken identity. And we also lose the little details that we all remember. I remember, for example, the way he would come into work with the khaki shorts and green polo and sit in his chair when he didn't have a student, which was most of the time it seemed, and cross his legs and crunch that big old Granny Smith apple and clatter the Welsh newspaper real loudly and sort of squint at it with that one blue eye that had a cataract, so it was just slightly only a blue eye. We lose little details like that. So, having made that distinction that I've been trying to make between the persona that I love the persona, and the person, and the troubadour, which I loved, and the true man, who I also loved and miss. Having made that distinction, I do want to finish with one more joke. Because he told me once, and again, he told me it's his favorite joke, and I wrote him a letter, and I said, remember the favorite joke you used to tell me? And he said, oh yeah, that's one of my favorites. I said, well, I don't know what your favorite is. Maybe he knows. This might have been Peter's version of the Gospel of John. So it's the Old West, 1850s, I don't know, sun high in the sky, saloons, bars, tumbleweeds, skipping along, ponies, tethered posts, all that. And about the middle of the day, you get a clattering of hoofs. And the cowboy rides in, and he shoots his pistols off into the air. And he says, everybody, get out of town. Big John's coming. Big John's coming. And all the doors burst open, and the prospectors come running out and jump on their horses, belly first. And men are falling out of the windows of the houses of ill repute, fumbling their suspenders. Women are not even bothering to straighten their stockings. Everybody's just clearing out. It's Big John's coming. And Big John is the meanest, nastiest, toughest outlaw in all of the West. So there's a dust cloud, everybody gone. Only too bad for Buck O'Neill, the bartender, say Pat's, I don't know, who happened to be in the outhouse when the announcement was made. And so he missed everything. He comes back and he finds his bar deserted. Nobody there, stools tipped over, all that. And what's going on? The rapture come, and all of my bar patrons, customers, drunken, philandering, Western outlaws get summoned to heaven, and he only now and then, subject to unusual temptations, get left behind. He's puzzling about all that, and then the ground starts to shake. Boom, boom, there's a shadow at the door, and a man who is 70 feet tall and has a beard down to his pistols and arms like oak trees comes in. He says, give me a whiskey. Buck pours it with trembling hands. The man says, leave the bottle. He leaves the bottle. He drinks it all out. In one draft. And the man, sits there a while, sort of satisfied, reaches into his pouch, not a purse, I guess, his pouch, tosses the coin over to Buck, and abruptly as he came, he gets up to leave. And the bartender looks at the coin and says, wait a minute, don't you want your change or another drink or something like that? The giant turns around and he growls and says, no time, gotta get going. Big John's coming. Well, Peter loved that joke. And it ends in a mystery. I have to explain it to you now. I have to explain why it's funny. Because you never meet Big John. And, maybe the implication is like he's even bigger than the first guy. But there are other possibilities as well. For example, it could all be just a hoax and a sham, the cowboy making fun giggling on the horizon. And there's another possibility that I think might be even funnier, which is he's like this 4'5" 4-foot tall, little pipsqueak guy. Comes in, "Oh, Big John!" who has been woefully misrepresented. And anyway, in the same way, here and now, we don't get to meet whoever Big John is in this life. And it sometimes seems like a joke. Peter was fond of the Robert Frost poem, "Lord, forgive my little jokes on thee," my little blasphemies, "and I'll forgive thy great big one on me." And so we don't get to meet Big John. And maybe he's the meanest, nastiest thing in the cosmos, full of sulfur and pitchforks and all that. Or maybe, as Peter believed, nothing at all, fantasy. But maybe, just maybe, we can't ignore the possibility that there's something there. And as for me, I will hope for my friend Peter that all the things I loved about him, all the shards of his identity, are not lost forever. Because I think that would be the most beautiful and most wonderful and perfect punchline of all. Linda, you might find me on a lamppost. You are absolutely wonderful and marvelous and beautiful. And I can't say that in one breath either.
Yeah, I can follow that. I know that my Redeemer liveth. Though this body be destroyed, yet shall I see God, whom I shall see for myself, and not as a stranger. Indeed, we gather this day to remember and to celebrate and to give thanks for the rich and fully lived life of Peter Neville Williams. A rich and fully lived life that, as you see, touched so many of you in his own special ways in this earthly journey. Now, knowing Peter for the short time that I have done so in the 5 years I've been here, I might surmise that he would not expect to end up here. Surprise on him. Say Peter's life was rich and fully lived by no means diminished those personal and physical challenges that he faced in his life. Challenges that others might have faced that lead them to a life of bitterness or pity. But Peter faced those changes and chances that life brings to us all with courage, and gusto, and laughter, and stories. Think about it. When someone writes an autobiography and titles it "Whistling in the Soup," you must expect laughter throughout the midst of that, in the midst of the truth of what life gives us sometimes, truth given in grace and love. For Peter had many loves. You know, this is not a Jerry Springer moment. Nothing revealed, dalliances outside and otherwise. Don't worry, Linda, you were the main love of his life. But let me unpack a few of those lovers that I believe I've come to know in Peter Neville Williams in the time I have known him. First and foremost, Peter loves family. The story of his life growing up in his beloved Wales. His life of learning at King's School in Chester, later Swansea University, coming to the United States and continuing that teaching and learning. The lasting friendships that emerged through those times and experiences. The joy of his ministry, opening that guest house. The tragedy of the death of his grandma, so suddenly and sadly. Like all families, Peter relished the wonderful and the wacky alike. But ever speaking the truth always, and love. For Peter loves family. Peter loves his country and its history. Coming to the United States at the age of 23, he continued his studies. He taught at John Bassett Moore, Brandywine, and Concord High School, later at Del Tech, and for a time at UD with the English learning language. even while deeply physically challenged by the hearing loss that he experienced while serving the army, Peter ever pressed forward. Pressed forward his love of history, the love of language, the love of his country, the love of sharing stories about that country. And that country would be Wales, of course. You might take a Welshman out of Wales, but well, we know the rest from his avid and prolific writing and sharing his stories and teaching everything in Welsh. We know his frequent writings in Britannia.com, other magazines and journals on Welsh and Irish history. His founding and leadership of the Welsh Society of Dublin for over 35 years. Our intersection here at St. Thomas, we hosted a number of times the annual Welsh Hymn Sing on or near St. Peter's Day on March 1st. His love that was recognized by the St. David Society of Philadelphia as Welshman of the Year in 1990. And for me, in all truth and love, you have to really, really love all things Welsh, just to speak the language. As we heard and read in Psalm 23 and some of these hymn titles today. I've been convinced that Welsh is the only language that has more consonants in any given word than Hebrew. But I was also told it has more vowels in Hebrew too, so that's good to know. Peter loves his country. Peter loves its history. And importantly, Peter loves his wife Linda. And Linda's words, they first met over 12 years ago through an online argument about something Peter wrote or said that Linda had different thoughts about. Well, they continued in conversations, and the conversations moved to finding more similar loves and disagreements. So Linda moved to New York, became the faithful, loving partner and faithful partner to Peter in his life. Though his physical presence is now gone from us, the gift of your marriage on September 1st is the gift of your souls knit together forever in this witness. Peter loves his wife Linda. Peter loves. I use the present tense very intentionally. For that through his death and from his life, he will continue to love each and every one of us. Love in that spirit of joy and laughter and teaching and storytelling and all things Welsh. Maybe not so much the love of the church. And I really don't know the history of Peter's not so much love affair with the church. I might suspect the church human might have some part to do with that. And his discomfort with things churchy. But I am grateful to know that Linda said he did like me. Most of the time, as far as I know. But obviously this by no means goes to say that Peter did not live a life without faith. His Welsh heritage itself, right with the worship of God, and central to all of his life. And I do believe Peter lived out that part of his life faithfully. An agnostic friend of mine says quite often, it kind of brings me right around when I need to, and I think it captures Peter's belief. Is this what Jesus really told you to do? You need to think about it. Is this what Jesus really tells us to do? He invites us to meet the presence of God in the least, in the lost, in the least likely sometimes, like Peter was. So I trust that God's working through Peter in ways that I cannot know or understand, and maybe, as you said, Jeremy, maybe even a little bit of the same he can't understand either. Hearing of the love of the Good Shepherd, the shepherd of all life, is expressed so eloquently in Psalm 23 and in John's Gospel this day. Knowing how Peter faithfully shepherded so many with his loves. And I suspect by that way we have known a very vibrant very present faith in his own way. So to Peter, my brother in this life, your loves will continue. Will continue to be lived in the hearts and the lives of each and every one of us, to all of you, whom you have touched by your rich and fully lived life. Your life will be remembered each time we remember everything that is Welsh. In the future St. David Day's Welsh hymn sings that I hope will continue here at St. Thomas. In your love of the life carried forward by your friends, by your family, by your beloved wife. So may that Good Shepherd and I greet you in God's kingdom. Lead your home in songs of joy eternal, so even Peter, you might have a few surprises in store for your journey ahead. So may Peter, with all the saints of God, rest in peace and rise in the glory that is Jesus Christ, our Lord. Amen.